Welcome to The Wing, the emotional and financial health check you never knew you needed. We provide tangible solutions for young women to build emotional health and wealth on their journey from school to motherhood. This is the podcast for young women in Australia navigating the big stuff: life, money, and motherhood. From high school to first homes, babies to bank accounts, we take you on an interactive listening journey that helps you make smart, empowered decisions every step of the way.
Hello, ladies. Welcome to another episode of The Wing. Today we have our guest, Katie Stones. So I'll tell you a little bit about Katie and then we'll get into a nice, candid, confident discussion. Katie is an online women's health and fitness coach with over 10 years of experience helping women build strong bodies and even stronger confidence. She specialises in creating sustainable habits that help women look incredible, feel empowered, and show up for themselves first, knowing that when they do, every other area of their life improves too. Katie is also an IFBB bikini athlete, having competed 18 times since 2018, and now she mentors aspiring competitors to step on stage with confidence. Her passion lies in helping women realise their true potential, watching them step into their power, back themselves fully, and become doers rather than dreamers. That is what drives her every day. Now, Katie, hello. Firstly, hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am honoured.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. This is actually a podcast I have wanted to record for quite some time because Katie and I personally are friends, and I've also been a client of Katie's at one point in time, and basically everything she says just makes sense, and she is able to answer a lot of my complicated questions to do with health and wellness, and I just feel like her professional input is going to be very, very valuable for a lot of our listeners. So, Katie, if you could, we're going to start with, if you could tell us a little bit more about your personal and professional life and why you do what you do. So feel free to share as much or as little as you're comfortable to.
Okay, well, have you got a bit of time on your hands? No, I'm just kidding. So I guess my journey starts probably around the age of 18. I auditioned and got into dance college, musical theatre college, and that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a performer. And I guess being in that sort of bubble, it's a very image-orientated industry. Like if we turned up without makeup on, we get sent home. I have a traumatic memory of being told to pull my gut in a dance class, and that kind of led to a lot of slightly odd behaviors, and that in turn is through lack of education and knowing what would actually work for me and my body. And whilst I was there, I was there for 3 years. I developed I would say a bit of a binge eating disorder because I just had no clue, and I wanted to be as small as possible, as toned as possible. And it got to the point where I was like secret eating. I'd be hiding my wrappers and then like trying to survive off lettuce leaves for the day. I wouldn't say it was a particularly extreme case of binge eating because I was able to pull myself out of it a few years later. But that is kind of where my journey started off. Like I wanted to look a certain way and I just had no clue of how to do it. And it was around that time, and this makes me feel old, probably you as well, where Instagram kind of came about. And I remember having my iPad and going through Instagram, and I was seeing all of these. I was following a lot of fitness, I guess they'd be called influencers nowadays, people with bodies that I aspired to be like. And I sort of started really learning a bit about nutrition. At this point, I'd graduated and I'd fallen into quite the depression. I was sat watching TV most days and then selling Jaeger bombs in nightclubs in London on a weekend. And that was whilst I was auditioning through the week, but auditions were kind of few and far between. So I'd just be sat in my pajamas scrolling on social media and watching TV and eating from the UK, 1 pound ready meals from Iceland. I don't think you've got Iceland over here. It's like farm foods.
Don't think so.
Very cheap. I was not my best self back then. And I do think it is just lack of knowing what was good for me at that age. Although I see so many young people in their early 20s are so switched on now. And I'm like, damn you. Yeah, I guess one day I was just sick of feeling so shit because I wasn't moving my body. I'd kind of stopped dancing because it was too expensive. I was just auditioning. And I was eating crap. I just wasn't looking after myself. I felt like crap. And just one day I was like, I'm going to try and eat a healthy breakfast. And I remember having 10 almonds and a banana. And that and that just kind of like kick-started it. And then I was like, oh, I want to cook some healthier food. So I started focusing more on the whole food approach from what I'd learned off Instagram. I was like, do you know what? A gym membership is actually affordable. I could do that rather than going to dance classes, got myself a personal trainer. And he was the one who insisted that if I wanted to grow my butt, which is what I wanted to do, I needed to lift weights. And this was back in 2012. So that's when my journey with the gym started. I started educating myself on that, and I got myself out of this rut, this binge restrict cycle. I started just eating whole foods, training. It took me a while to actually train up a body, which is funny, because I thought I was too big already. I was self-conscious of my broad shoulders, whereas nowadays I'm like, let them grow as large as they will forever. And then 2015, I decided to do my personal training course qualifications, and I was doing it purely because I liked training and I was interested in it. I wasn't thinking about the massive fulfillment that I'd actually get from helping others within a realm that I'm so passionate about. I PT'd for about 8 years. During that time, I was building my online business, and I think the last 3 or 4 years I've been fully online, and I've helped hundreds of women successfully and some unsuccessfully. Depends on the client, to improve their lives. And yeah, I never realized how passionate and fulfilled I would be from just taking that decision out of pure, oh, I like doing this. And yeah, so that's been like how I got into this. Side note, competing journey. I wanted to compete for about 5 years before I actually took the leap and did it. And I really thrived on pushing myself to do hard things. And every prep that I did kind of took me to a new level mentally. I'd learn more about myself. I'd have more like philosophical epiphanies about like the human mind and how that works. And although competing is not for everyone, I think having that in my arsenal has helped me to help people with their mindset a lot as well. Because I think, in theory, eating well and moving your body is very simple. But when it's, you're putting it into action with busy lifestyles, careers, children, it's actually a lot harder to do that. And I find a lot of people's minds are what are holding them back. They have a limited view on what can be achieved, and they don't realize that they're standing in their own way.
I love that, Katie. I think it's interesting. You used a few different terms there. So you said binge and restrict. So I actually think, I can personally relate to that because, yeah, definitely. I mean, look, and there's no excuse. As you said, your mind is what can get in the way most of the time, because if you set your mind to something, and then that's what's going to make that shift for you. But some days I'll survive off a protein muesli bar till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And sometimes that is not that's because I've either forgotten to bring another muesli bar upstairs because I'm trying to kind of keep some space between me and the toddlers if they're being looked after by someone else, or just not preparing properly. And that's my mind taking myself somewhere else, just being too busy to properly organize my food for the next day, or as simple as bringing up a YoPro and popping it in the fridge so that I know I have that to snack on. And then all of a sudden I get to dinner time and I'm like, oh, like last night, I want to make a creamy chicken pasta. So I did that, and it was great. It was lovely. Obviously, I did portion control, but that's probably a live example that happened yesterday of a binge and restrict kind of situation. It's simply because my mind it wasn't a priority for me yesterday. I was, coordinating things with the kids, and that is not an excuse, but I think that's a very relatable piece. And if you can actually acknowledge that about yourself and realize, okay, well, I was completely off course yesterday. So how do I change that for the coming days? And speaking with someone like you that has been through a similar, a journey of your own that has led you to this point where you are actually completely knowledgeable in this space. I also know that you read a lot of books, Katie, as well. Is there any? Yeah, you are a bit of a bookworm. Are there any books that kind of stood out to you that you think have helped in your own mindset shift, or that you might recommend to clients to read in that to help them?
Yeah. I'll recommend a book, but I want to touch on the binge restrict, what you were talking about, and priorities as well.
Go for it.
So book-wise, I love, there's a book called Master Your Mean Girl by Melissa Ambrosini. I think something that many women, and maybe men as well, I don't know if you have any male listeners.
I do.
Oh, hello, boys. Hello. What was I saying? Mastering Your Mean Girl by Melissa Ambrosini. A lot of women are far too hard on themselves, and they put so much unnecessary pressure on themselves in many different realms. And I think maybe we're getting a bit deep here. I think some of that comes from, societal norms, cultural norms. The hustle culture is being very popular. Women now going to work and working 9 to 5 like men traditionally have done, but then also running a household, looking after kids. I think they're so hard on themselves, and that narrative is what stops them actually stopping and thinking, okay, what do I need in this moment? What food would fuel me right now? Okay, I'm feeling stressed and anxious. What is an action that I can take that will positively benefit me long term, rather than instant gratification now, minus stress relief, and then feeling guilty and shit about it afterwards? So I thought that book was really good in that regard. Another one I like was How to Do the Work by Nicole LaPera, I think it is. She's called the Holistic Psychologist on Instagram, and she talks a lot about the wounded inner child and shadow work, and how your parents have played a role in how you think about things today. Maybe I can loop that back. So those are probably my 2 biggest recommendations for that. But I want to loop back to what you were saying about that binge restrict. There's a big misconception on what binge eating actually is. So I would say if you forgot to eat all day and then you had a big pasta meal for dinner, I wouldn't say that that was kind of like binge restrict. I think a conscious overindulgence is different to eating to the point where you are physically full and feel sick, but then you're still looking for something else to eat, and then you're eating that, and then you're going through and eating stuff that you wouldn't normally eat, but because it's there and the urge to eat is so strong, you can't stop. So I think that there's a difference between not forwards thinking with your nutrition and then actively restricting yourself out of self-loathing, or because you hate the way you look, or you don't feel you deserve the food, and then going absolutely wild on the eating front. So, and that's a very common thing. I'll often have clients say, oh, I had a binge. I ate like pizza and then had ice cream. I was like, did you feel out of control? Or was it a conscious decision to be like, I'm just going to enjoy this and eat probably a bit too much? So something to consider there. But I think when you were saying about, your day the other day where you had one muesli bar and then the chicken pasta, that could also be a case of just the way that your mind is used to working. Like you were maybe I'm assuming things, feel free to correct me, but you had so much other stuff going on, looking after toddlers, organizing toddlers, work stuff, whatever it is, household stuff, that food was maybe not top of your list of priorities or thought processes. And so maybe it's just a case of getting into the habit of forwards thinking. And this is something that I encourage to my clients. Forwards thinking, okay, tomorrow, what is my fuel going to look like so that I can get all this stuff done that I need to get done with clarity of mind and energy? Even just thinking, okay, what time am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? Do I need to pre-prepare anything if I'm going to be time poor for the next day? And just reminding yourself of that every day. And soon it will be at the forefront of your mind. Like, I know personally, I know I've been doing this a long time, my days revolve around my food timings. It doesn't have to be like that for everyone. I think it's the athlete in me. Like, I want to be fueled optimally. But just having that forwards thinking of, okay, how can I fuel myself throughout this busy day? Your life quality will be drastically improved,
I agree, Katie. I think, the reminders to yourself, like, as I said, I just did not prioritize it whatsoever. And that bit me later because I didn't have the right stashes of food that I needed for the day. And then, it can be that cycle of then you end up feeling bad about yourself and you think the whole thing's a failure. And then, waking up today and being like, okay, well, what can I do differently today that is not going to make me live off one muesli bar, and try and make that, that change and that decision early in the day. So I don't need to think about it. Like, you said your day revolves around your meal plans and what your food and what your intake is going to be. And it's like more of us can be doing that to any level. Like it's as simple as me making sure that I shop correctly and making sure that I have the right foods available in the fridge and pantry so that it's not an overcomplicated thing to go and get what I need when I need. It's just about prioritizing, like you said. So I think that is very valuable. So thank you. Well, look, listeners, this was a conversation that Katie and I actually had with each other last week, and I was blown away by Katie's knowledge. So I'm going to bring up the topic because I feel like it's going to be very useful. So, Katie, can you talk to us about women's hormone rebalancing and give us a little bit of insight on your knowledge in that space?
Oh, where do I start? So hormones are a very complex subject, and it's important to note that I am not an endocrinologist when I give this advice. I am not a GP. This is just common themes that I have come across from working with hundreds of women in different phases of life, whether that's, early 20s to perimenopausal to postmenopausal. I've worked with all of them, and a lot of my current client base are perimenopausal. And I think that there comes a point where, not in all cases, but I know a lot of women start feeling stuck. They feel like they're doing all the right things and their body just isn't playing ball with them. And it usually is a case of something being off with their hormones. Not all the time. Like a lot of the time I get clients come to me and it is really just a case of optimizing their diet, managing their stress levels, making sure they're getting adequate sleep and they're moving their body. Like if you've already done that with a professional, because let's face it, there's a lot of miscommunication and conflicting information out there. And if you try to do it yourself, it's very, very overwhelming. If you've done that with a coach, like optimize all those things and your body still isn't playing ball, it's likely that there's something going on hormonally. And it all has everything works in synergy, and it always blows my mind how intelligent and complex the human body is. But for example, things like blood sugar stability, stress, poor liver, and gut health, they can all play roles in your hormones. Same with having things like insufficiencies within your diet and having micronutrient deficiencies. They can all play a role in your hormones. And I guess, put simply, most surface level hormonal issues can be solved via time and implementing the correct protocol for you. And then there are some where you will need additional help, particularly that would be more so perimenopausal, postmenopausal women with their HRT. Sometimes you do need a little bit of help, and that's, I guess, a whole different subject.
When we were having our conversation, Katie actually caught me on an extremely flat day, and I've done my postpartum GP checks and all of the above and whatnot, although I had not had a deep dive into any kind of blood test. But I kind of forgot about that, strangely, because it's always a first bit of advice that I would give to Jake when he comes home with his pocket full of vitamins. But finding out where I'm actually lacking, like why is my cycle so off? Is it just because I had another baby? What is going on in there? And Katie politely reminded me, because I was considering some different medications, and she said, "Have you had blood tests lately?" And I said, "I actually don't think I have." So and I was stressing myself out because the cycle was off. I was, in different pain in my body. I was just stressing out. I was stressed because I was stressed. And, all of these things were compounding for me. And when I was talking with Katie, she just, politely reminded me that perhaps a blood test might be a good idea so that you can actually have a look and see what's going on in there. And Katie sent me this giant list of like all of these different things to test and a website that I could book. Katie, I did end up booking through this website, by the way. I'm going to be doing that blood test in a couple of weeks. But to test all of my hormones, and I think one of the tests was around blood sugar resistance, Katie, I think. So if you, feel free, go into more detail.
So I guess the best way to get a picture of what is going on if you're feeling off is to get your bloods done. And this is a spiel I gave Katie the other week. Essentially, when you go to the GP, unless you have a really good GP, most of them, they book you in for 15 minutes. They want you in and out as fast as possible. If you want specific things tested, which I realize that, many general population women don't know what needs to be tested, the GPs will test the bare minimum. And as females, we're so incredibly complex with our cycles. There are so many factors that can impact our hormones and our health. I feel personally that a lot of GPs just aren't doing enough. And then, say if you did go to the GP to get these things tested and you were within a normal range, they'll be like, okay, well, you're fine, nothing to worry about. And then you feel, well, if I'm fine, then I must be fine, even though I feel within my body something is off. And this is where I come in, I guess. I love to advocate for my clients. I operate from a functional and optimal perspective when I'm analyzing bloods. And this is why I gave Katie this giant list of things. And then when she gets those results back, when my clients do get their bloods done and get them back, I often send them to go private because GPs just won't test what I want tested for them and what they need to have tested. I will look at their results against optimal ranges instead of normal ranges. And that's something that I feel that a lot of people don't know, is that when you get your bloods back, they are tested within the normal range. And normal does not mean healthy. Normal does not mean optimal. It means against the general population. And I feel that as a population in general, we're probably not the healthiest with the amount of cardiovascular disease, cancer, metabolic issues. It's just not a relevant range to be comparing yourself to, especially when you feel that something is off. So yeah, I do tend to get my clients to go private with that so that we can test literally everything. Those surface level tests that the GP will run don't give a full picture of what's going on, because so many aspects. For example, if you have low iron, that can then impact your thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, and that can then lead to thyroid issues. But if they're telling you your iron's low, they're probably not testing all of the TSH, free T3, T4, all that jazz to give the full picture of what's going on. Is your low iron impacting your thyroid? As an example.
That is exactly what I was so interested in, because it was yes, it was a big list, but it was also we're not just testing the top tier things, all your common things that, like you said, iron, thyroid, whatever else, blood sugar, all of those types of things. But then there's a whole, it's sort of the blood test stops there. In a standard situation, it's here are your results. You're in normal range. You're okay. You may continue with your day, and then you're sort of left feeling okay, like you said, if you say I'm okay. But there's so many other things. It's okay, well, what's the next step? Okay, well, if you're in normal range but you're not in the optimal range, then how is that result impacting on other factors in your body? And then you can move on to solutions rather than just either straight away medicating without having the insight at all, or medicating incorrectly based on a very general result, and then maybe giving up on other things, maybe thinking, oh, okay, well, I have low iron, so I'll take iron tablets and everything else stays the same. So don't change anything to do with your movement, don't change anything to do with your diet. Yeah, I just think that hormone rebalancing therapy is a big topic, obviously, but not even knowing where to start for me was really overwhelming. I was just, you saw me, I was so lost. I was like, what do I even do? Am I just going to feel like this forever? I'm just accepting my fate. And you were like, no, let's zoom out. Let's just direct you in the direction of blood tests. So I feel like I've got headspace back now because I could take an action, and I went onto the website and I booked myself a blood test. I've scheduled in a date that I need to do it according to my cycle. And at that stage, I'm going to have a whole bunch of new information that's going to help me dictate what do I actually do next, rather than just jumping down a rabbit hole because I think I should.
You have direction. So many people feel lost because they're just not getting that from their GPs. And I guess as a culture, where our first instinct when something is wrong is to go to the GP. But a GP, I feel, a lot of their specialities is in administering drugs. It's Band-Aid over a bullet hole. It's not GPs looking for the root cause, and I feel like, from there, you're like, well, what do I do now? Like, I feel off, but I literally have no idea. And to that, I say, check out a homeopath, naturopath, kinesiologist. Those guys would be good. And then I guess like someone like me, although it's just extra advice I give my clients rather than me being an endocrinologist, like someone who at least can advocate and guide you to getting the help and treatment that you need.
I think too, Katie, in your field and, with your qualifications, personal experience, understanding of all of this, you're looking at it in lots of different facets. It's not just one specific area. So, Katie, I want to ask you as well, you're talking about hormone rebalancing, still on that topic, but how does women's nutrition impact hormones and cycle health and rhythm from your perspective?
Okay, so we'll do a crash course in nutrition. Most people will know that there are 3 main macronutrients in your diet, and all of the foods that you eat are made up of one or a combination of all these macronutrients. That is your protein, your carbs, and your fats. Something that I feel that people are catching on to now is eating a high protein diet is incredibly beneficial. And, the government guideline daily allowance, recommended daily allowance is drastically low for what we actually need. So generally, as a rule of thumb, you want to be having about 2 grams of protein per kilo of lean body mass. But protein is it's the building block for all tissues in your body. And if you're not having adequate protein, and if you're resistance training, which you should be, it's great for bone density in women, then you're not going to be building that muscle that you need. Equally, protein supports ovulation. So if you're not getting enough protein, that can impair the hormone production and recovery as well. So that's, I guess, how that macronutrient would relate to hormones. Then we have fats. So healthy fats are hormone fuel. They are essential for hormonal health. And I cannot stress enough how important they are for females in supporting a healthy cycle. If you don't have adequate healthy fats in your diet, your hormones are going to suffer. And in extreme cases, it can lead to things like autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's. So cholesterol and dietary fats are required to produce estrogen and progesterone. So extremely low fat diets will disrupt that. So I guess there's a lot of confusion with fats as well in that, there are good fats and bad fats. I would try not to look too much into that, but look at where your fats are coming from. If they're coming from a whole food, so things like avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, avocado oil, and then we have like the animal-based fats, so fatty fishes like sardines, wild-caught salmon. I think they're probably the main fats that I can think. Oh, whole eggs as well. They're going to be beneficial to you. Whereas if you're getting your fats from donuts and hot chips, probably won't have a positive impact on your hormones. I guess within carbohydrates, we have fiber. I wouldn't call it a macronutrient, but most carbohydrates, fats have fiber in them. And fiber is incredibly important for not only digestive health and keeping your bowel movements regular, making sure that your intestinal health is tip-top, but it actually also helps to clear excess estrogen. Fiber binds to used hormones in the gut so that they can be eliminated instead of reabsorbing them. So if you're not having adequate fiber, you could be reabsorbing used hormones, which is not a vibe really, is it? Carbohydrates, they can help to regulate your blood sugar levels, which can, I don't know whether it would come under hormones, but if your blood sugar is constantly peaking, crashing, constantly elevated, that can lead to metabolic disorders like type 2 diabetes, cravings, low energy, fatigue, same thing. And then we have micronutrients. So these are as well are super important in supporting your hormones. So the main ones I would say would be iron, zinc, iodine, selenium, B vitamins, and vitamin D. They all play direct roles in ovulation, thyroid health, and progesterone production. And it's important to note that a lot of these vitamins are fat soluble. So if you're not getting adequate healthy dietary fats, but you're consuming adequate micronutrients, they're not going to be absorbed into your body effectively. So again, everything's working in synergy. And then another thing that can drastically impact your hormones is cortisol, stress production. If your meal timing is off, so for example, long gaps between meals or chronic underfueling, that can elevate your stress hormones, which will directly disrupt your cycle health over time. So hopefully that gives you like a bit of a picture on how all of these things kind of fit together or work together for a healthy cycle and healthy hormones.
Absolutely. I think, Katie, that, well, for me, my gosh, all of this muesli bar survival system is not working for me. I think that obviously there's other elements of stress in my life at the moment, but I can reflect actually on that last cycle and can probably confidently say that had everything to do with it. I mean, obviously then too, I try and factor in a bit of a weight loss journey, and then that's just a cherry on the cake when I'm not doing things properly.
So many women, particularly mothers, are struggling with that. And it's just not knowing where to start
Totally.
or what to prioritize, and so much conflicting information. Like you have all of these buzzwords on social media like, come with me to regulate my hormones, or I've got cortisol face, help me regulate. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of buzzwords, there's a lot of conflicting information, and it's confusing and overwhelming.
That's it. And I can completely relate to that, because anytime I even have a thought about any of those things, I open up Instagram and there it is. And I just think, okay, I just need to go back and listen to Katie and just do the things that we know. But it's, carving out time and making sure that it's a priority,
Yeah.
and also maybe having some time to reset and actually make it a priority, whether that's a journal moment or a conversation or listening to a podcast or reading a book or, planning out your week, doing a meal plan, or just, it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Or
Yeah.
also having the right people in your corner. So having a coach like you to have that professional, kind of set the boundaries and then have someone to be accountable with is also a useful tool. Katie, I've got a few more questions for you. So if there's one piece of advice you could give to women pre-pregnancy, what would it be? And these women can be people that might be wanting to have babies. It could be people that don't want to have babies. It might be people that are, at certain times in their lives that they're just being them, and they're not, necessarily prepping for pregnancy, or maybe they are. Maybe you could give some light on what you would typically say to them.
It's a tricky one because I guess like many women are at different stages in life. They have different priorities. They have different, where they're at with their health as well. Some women have some issues. Some women have other issues. Maybe just making sure that you're across the board with your health, getting your bloods done, getting a full panel of bloods done, making sure that you're working to rectify these things before conceiving will probably give you the best chance of not only conceiving faster, but also having a healthy pregnancy as well. I mean, it's definitely not my realm of expertise, but I guess just making sure you're in an optimal point there, and also not rushing the process. I feel like so many people, myself included, with certain things, want that quick fix, and they're not willing to put in the time and the work and the effort that will yield them being in the best possible position to conceive. But I think if you can put in the time and effort, like, it's going to pay off tenfold, isn't it? Another thing to consider as well is your partner. There's a lot of focus on women and where they're at with their health, but are you considering your partner? Is your partner going on benders every weekend? Is your partner dealing with any of their own health issues? Does your partner have a good diet? There has been studies, and I can't quote them, that have shown the impact on the health of the male that is partaking in the conception will impact the baby as well. So I think that's something to also be. I know you can't control what another person does, but like, are both you and your partner, or whoever you're planning on having a baby with, are you both in optimal health?
Yes, good advice, Katie. I think that's something that we often forget is, and it also applies to just your general living situation as well. Like if you're, how you shop for the week or the meals that you prepare. And obviously couples, Jake and I, for example, our body types couldn't be more different. Like Jake's 6'2" and, I'm 5'. He's a male, I'm female. Our bodies need completely different things. So us trying to find that balance in what we're eating every week can be quite confusing. And like our portion sizes are different and our hormonal needs are different. And, taking all of that into account as well, I think it's a great point that you made to acknowledge that. And, that, not only on a conception journey for pre-pregnant women to consider their partner's health as well, but also in everyday life. Like the person that you live with is going to impact a lot of your food decisions and choices. And just because you live together doesn't mean you need or could even be eating the same things. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I live by myself, and I gotta say, since living by myself, it's been so much easier to adhere to eating healthy. I don't buy foods that I know I would overindulge in, and when I want to overindulge, I'll go out and eat out. So it definitely makes it easier. Live on your own, everybody. It's much easier.
Look, if I lived by myself, it would be a lot more peaceful doing these podcast recordings. So I apologize if I stop and start and hear things and mute myself and what have you. I'm dodging quite a few little voices in the background at the moment.
We love it.
Yes. Katie, I also want to ask for one piece of advice that you would give to our pregnant ladies.
Oh, okay. So I want everyone to know that I cannot speak from experience here. I only have furry babies that I did not make myself. But I would say
I hope not.
be true to yourself and listen to your body. I think that, from, a lot of my friends are mums, a lot of my clients are mums. From what I've heard, like there can sometimes be pressure to follow what the medical system tells you to do. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of merit in that. Like, this is a very important that, you bring a healthy baby into the world. But go with your gut. Like, if they are suggesting something that you don't want to do, that's an option. Like, go with your gut. Like, as a female, I feel like our intuition can be really strong when we're aware of it. And I think it's important to stick with your values and your intuition rather than going off of what everyone else does or what the doctors are suggesting you do. In most things, take that as broadly as you like.
That's valuable. And I think, again, listening to our bodies and listening to our gut and deciding what is right for us is incredibly important. And I know definitely, like from experience in that field, do get some pretty strong gut feelings, which it can also be very confusing, I guess. But that is nice reminder, Katie. And as well, I want to ask you one bit of advice for our postpartum ladies.
Yes, I'm excited to answer this one. I think, again, I'm talking societal norms. There's, I want to lose the baby weight. I want to bounce back. I want to, shred up after gaining however many kilos whilst pregnant. I think it's important to remember that you just spent 40 weeks growing a human being inside you. It's an incredible feat. It's mind-blowing. And I think what your body probably needs postpartum is to rebuild, TLC and love, rather than let's go, 6 a.m. workout for an hour. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an easy feat for your body, and it's incredible that your body has been able to do this. And therefore, I think the main focus should be not to restrict, bounce back, lose the baby weight, but to rebuild. And I think in rebuilding, you will also rebuild your best body as well. So if you focus on adequately fueling, getting enough rest, particularly if you're breastfeeding, like your demand for energy is so much higher, you can get away with eating a heap more food than if you're not. So making sure you're giving your body what it needs. Also, you're most likely going to be sleep deprived unless you have an angel rare baby that sleeps through the night. So your body's going to be relying on food more than it would if it was adequately slept. And then I think just building muscle and I can't think of the word, but after having a baby, often we have ab separation or there's imbalances or what's that? There's a condition in the hips. It's like pubis. I'm sure that
No,
if you've
I should know
experienced it, you know what I'm talking about if you're listening. But yeah, just making sure that you're strengthening your hips, recalibrating your abdominal region, making sure that your core is nice and strong, and focusing on getting your body strong again. And you'll probably find that as a byproduct, you do actually drop any baby weight anyway, rather than, restricting your food, training to the point where, you're exacerbating the exhaustion that you're already feeling, and putting that pressure on yourself to do that. I think just time and rebuild should be the main focuses.
Love it, Katie. I think that that's all very practical advice. And even listening to you say that, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. I should be doing that. It shouldn't be so difficult or overwhelming, but it's nice to hear that even as a reminder, because that's the exact period of time that I'm sitting in currently. And, there's no rush. There is absolutely no rush.
Exactly.
Time is going to be my best friend. Exactly, to to rebuild, to become stronger, I said to you the other day when we were walking, I made a comment. We were walking through Kmart and I said something like, oh, I've been buying certain size swimmers, which I won't disclose, just for my own embarrassment really. When I said to Katie, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get this size when I'm skinny again. And Katie goes, no, Katie, not skinny, strong. And I was like, oh, yes, that's right.
Strong feels way better.
Yeah, strong feels way better. Strong looks better. Strong feels better. Strong is more sustainable. Strong is going to keep us going till we're 90. So, it's a whole, reframing your mindset and speaking to yourself differently and listening to your body in different ways and picking up advice like this from Katie to make, get yourself on the right track. So, Katie, lastly, well, thank you for all of that information. But lastly, what's the one thing that you changed in your life at any stage that made the biggest impact to your role as a nutrition coach?
I think the number one thing was having the mindset shift of taking action out of love and respect for myself rather than punishment and self-loathing. I think initially my fitness journey started off, at dance college, self-loathing and not liking or not really knowing who I was and not liking what I saw in the mirror. And then as I began my journey with more education behind me, training and then deciding, I actually really love feeling strong and making progress in the gym. And I love how this eating probably makes me feel. I think that probably had the biggest impact. And I think it's, something that I'm not alone in. So many women struggle with, not liking what they see in the mirror and not feeling confident in themselves and taking action out of that, which is why they stay stuck in the same cycle of despair. Whereas, if you were to do things out of love and wanting to be the best version of yourself, it will just have a positive compounding effect on your decision making.
I love that. I think, it's so relatable. It's so easy to stand in front of the mirror and pick yourself apart and stand on the scales and say horrible things to yourself. And, these things aren't necessarily measures of where you're at or where you want to be or how to get to where you want to be. And having that reminder is, I hear it a lot now. People, I must say negative things quite frequently, but I often have people saying to me, just be kind to yourself. And I just forget that.
There's a difference between unnecessary pressure and then, the want to improve on things and grow. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I do think it's a fine line for many people, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it is a fine line, and it's little adjustments, as you said, that you can be making that are going to impact, your whole body and mind and different parts of your life, and maybe not trying to bite off too much at once.
Mm.
Like I feel like I probably did that turn of the new year. Okay, I'm going into a fat loss phase. I'm going to do this and that. I'm going to start moving my body more. I'm going to start Pilates again. And I did a lot of those things, but I feel like I've kind of dropped off the flow a little bit there, trying to do
I
too
guess,
much at once while I'm
yeah.
also settling into a different routine.
Yeah, and you're not alone in that either. We've all done that. And I think that the best way to, make sustainable change is just think about integrating one thing at a time. So, say, for example, for you, you want to get back into doing, was it Pilates you mentioned? I can't remember.
Yeah.
So, start with doing that 2 to 3 times a week. Then once that's an established habit, then you can bring in something else. And then another thing. Whereas if it feels like a complete lifestyle overhaul, it's going to feel very hard to sustain long term, and you're probably going to exhaust yourself. Whereas if you slowly build the habits and integrate more habits over time, it's less noticeable and therefore easier to sustain, I would say.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for the reminders. I feel like that's much needed. I mean, if anyone got value out of this, it was definitely me. So thank you.
I'm glad you found it, Pal.
Katie's just so knowledgeable, as I'm sure you would have picked up in this recording, and I really hope that you could take something away from this episode. But I know we all want more, Katie. So, Katie, I want you to give us a nice big plug of your business. Where can women find you? Where are you online? How do you like to be communicated with? How is someone going to book in?
Okay, so most of my clients find me through word of mouth or Instagram. My Instagram handle is coached by Katie AU. You can see my full personality on that page. And if you were interested in working with me, I do online coaching, which it essentially, I will write your custom training program. I'll give you a custom nutrition plan. There's a massive emphasis on education. You get a lot of resources. I check in with you weekly. If you are interested in that or you would like more information, you can click the link in my bio, fill out the coaching application form, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Katie. And we'll include as well, if depending where you're listening to this podcast, there'll be a link to Katie in the reel on the Wing Instagram feed as well, so that you will be able to find her and learn more. She also posts some very hilarious cooking videos. So even if you just want a little giggle in your life, I highly recommend following Katie because it makes me feel better when I log online to have a little look at what Katie's been up to.
Stuff in the kitchen. Yeah.
And it's always your accent for me, Katie. I know I mock you a fair bit. I don't do it out of ill intention. It's just because I think it's funny. It's a way of bonding.
I know I sound very excited.
You're a good sport.
So
All right, ladies and gents, because I do know there are a couple of you out there that listen to the Wing podcast. Yep. So thank you so much for listening. We hope you got some value out of the episode. Again, like, follow, share, and go digging to find Katie. And if you want more information, just ask her. I'm sure she'll be happy to help. But for now, we will see you very soon on the next episode of The Wing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Enjoyed the episode? Hit follow and check out _Wing Pod Oz on Instagram for a dose of wisdom getting you on the right path to success.